Hi, my name's Colleen. Welcome. I apologize in advance. It is a sticky time in Brooklyn and I have turned off the AC for sound quality, so I hope you enjoy. But I want to talk today about my favorite books about being sick. This is going to be a nonfiction edition. I will do a fiction edition sometime. I can't keep a schedule. I'm pretty tired right now. I've had a busy work week and whatever, but we are persevering because this has been on my to-do list and I want to make this video, so I'm making this video. If you don't know, July is Disability Pride Month. And we are at the end of July. This video has been on my to-do list for a while. And so I want to talk about my favorite books about being sick. I am a sick person. I'm a disabled person. I identify as both. Although the words are not interchangeable, I have a chronic illness. I have a structural mobility disability. I have a chronic pain, and I also have a learning disability. So that's a bit about me. And I'm going to introduce you to 4 books that I love that are about being sick. Now, just like full transparency, these are not the books. This one is a book, a little sneak peek. But I, because of previously aforementioned learning disability, I don't read with my eyes. So I don't own these books because I have read them all on audio or via screen reader, but I buy books that I like or are important to me or whatever, and I just haven't gotten around to all of these. But I guess we should start with the one that you already know exists because I just showed you, which is The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I love this book. I read this book at least twice a year since I read it the first time. It might be quarterly. I will listen to it. If you don't know, John reads the audiobook. Apologies. John, of course, a notable YouTuber and young adult author. Stay tuned for my favorite books about being sick fiction edition to hear more about John Green YA. Little sneak peek. But this is a book of nonfiction. It is a memoir-esque. It is, it started as a podcast and then he adapted it into a book that came out in 2021. It is essays that it is essentially essays that are reviews of elements of the human-centered planet, as it says on the cover right here. So he in here has a review of Canada geese. He has a review of Diet Dr. Pepper. He has lots of here. The first ones: You'll Never Walk Alone, Humanity's Temporal Range, Halley's Comet, Our Capacity for Wonder, Lascaux Cave Paintings, Scratch and Sniff Stickers. I reference, there are a couple of John Green quotes from this book about being sick that I think about a lot. There are some in the other one about being sick that I reference a lot that you might have heard me say. And that is because the way that John Green talks about being sick feels so authentic to me. I am someone who has who has experienced and actively experiences chronic illness that was perceived as acute illness for a long time and was mysterious for a long time. And so I have interfaced a great deal with the medical industrial complex, and the way that John talks about, he himself has OCD, a chronic mental illness, as well as is quite prone to acute illness. So we don't have really much of any overlap. If I'm gonna have an illness overlap, it's gonna be, or a disability overlap, with a Green brother, it's gonna be that Hank and I both have sensory processing disorder. But the way that this man talks about illness from a place of human reverie, and a place of hope through pain and suffering without glorifying or glamorizing or reifying pain and suffering, is really useful to me in the way that I contextualize my own illness and my own relationship with pain. He, throughout the whole book, strikes this really beautiful balance of being really hopeful about humanity, while also acknowledging the real terrible pain and suffering that humans put ourselves through, in terms of lots of things, but explicitly for this conversation, the medical industrial complex, and the way that science interacts with government and societies, as well as on a sort of more larger cosmic scale. So in the least trite way possible, and the most nuanced and the most connected and embodied way possible, the way that John talks about experiencing hope within despair as a person who experiences pain over a long period of time, really speaks to me. And also his just descriptions of pain. He's a really good writer. So he talks about pain in a way that's really good. But he also has a lot of experience that he writes about working as or not a lot. He has some experience working as a chaplain in a hospital, and weaves that in, and just a really beautiful book about humanity, and in a lot of elements, because it is about himself and about humanity, about humans' relationship with illness and pain. And I love it so much. And I highly recommend the audiobook. But it's also a really just beautiful, beautiful book. Absolutely gorgeous. Ooh. So, The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. The next book that I will discuss, again, I don't own it. The closest thing I have to it is by the same writer, which is Alice Wong. The Year of the Tiger is my favorite Alice Wong book, which is her memoir. This book is great as well. Disability Visibility, I highly recommend it. It's an edited book of essays. But her memoir about her experience and her life as a disabled woman, and explicitly as a disabled activist, and what that trajectory has been like, is so funny and charming and intricate, and it the way that she talks about love and care and justice for a body, not only a disabled body, a sick body, a broken body, but a body that changes in its state of sick and disabled and broken over the course of time, either progresses or symptoms change. The way that she's able to bring humor and perspective to the nuances of that, what it actually means to like live inside of and be a disabled body. And she talks about something that is really important to the way that I conceive of my own sickness, which is that I am not a person, I'm not a brain that is inside of a body. I am my body. And the next book I'm going to talk about talks about this a lot as well. But the body mind as a single unit, as opposed to a division between my body and my brain. See, I'm getting, it's a sticky time, is really essential to me as to experience the embodied life of a body that is in pain and that is sick and that is marginalized on the basis of my body, and where a lot of my challenges with the world around me are because of the body that I am in. And so many of my experiences are predicated on having this body. And so the way that she approaches being sick and being progressively sick and being dynamically sick with humor and joy and like cultural nuance and is just so beautiful and joyful. And I'm so grateful to Alice for all of the work she does within this community. I have so much gratitude for her, and on a large scale, and her book, her memoir, on just like a one-to-one, the 3 hours I spent listening to that book in my ear and experiencing her speaking to my soul. I'm just incredibly grateful for her generosity. It's such a fun book because it includes, especially on audio, of course, I don't know what this is like in the book, but it includes like interviews with her mom and excerpts from radio projects she did and recipes and just the story of the way that she uses her art and artistry as activism and her community building as ways to make the world better for all of us. Her commitment to the community is such an essential reminder to me that I am a part of a group of people who are sick, and lots of people who are sick and have been sick for a long time, and the cultural wisdom of that as we all connect laying in our respective beds. She's such a gift to the community and such a cherished elder, and I'm so grateful to her for all of her work. And I loved this book. I just thought it was so charming. So highly recommend You Are the Tiger. I believe it came out in 2022. So, and again, if you can get your hands on the audiobook, I don't know. I'm just always gonna recommend the audiobook because that's how I read it. But audiobooks are great. The third book I want to talk about is Care Work by Leah Lakshmi Piepzna-Samarasinha. I've never heard them say their name out loud, and I have tried, and my brain isn't great with words, so I believe that is how you pronounce their name, but they're wonderful. I am, again, extremely grateful to Leah for their work as part of the disability community in general, and specifically I feel so blessed, especially as an artist and a performer and a queer person, to be living at the same time as Leah and living in a world that Leah is working extremely hard to make well for people like us, and especially for queer, sick, mad, disabled folks of color. So grateful to the work that they do within our community and within communities that I am not a part of, that I'm just so grateful for. But Care Work, and I have not read The Future is Disabled, but it is on my list to read, so I'm so excited to. Their most recent book, but Care Work is has radically changed the way that I think about being disabled, and radically shifted. And I spoke a little bit about this with regards to You're the Tiger, but Care Work has radically shifted the way that I think about my connection to the community that I am a part of. I before reading Care Work, I conceived of myself as a sick person, me against the world, me against the medical industrial complex, my sick body against the well world, and a world that was intent upon me not existing. And after reading Care Work, I see myself as a member of a massive community that will only gain liberation if we work together and care for each other and build systems of care work and community work. And Leah introduced me to the topics of disability justice, and explicitly the integration of disability justice and disabled community as part of an artistic practice and also praxis. It is also praxis. But I'm so grateful to Leah for writing that book and for sharing their wisdom and sharing their community and sharing their art with us. But Care Work is a book about, there are portions of it that are sort of more memoir-esque and about Leah's own experience as a person with the body mind. I second guess myself. The body mind that they have, but it also shifts between sort of memoir and experience and true, like, lived wisdom and storytelling from their own perspective, and as well as stories and explanations about in a way that feels almost academic, about the work and what these words mean and how we can utilize them, and how we can imagine and actively create every day a world that is just for us to live in. And the pathway forward for doing that is care work, is community work and community care. And again, radically shaped the way that I think of myself as a sick person in community. And I just love their work. I'm so grateful. And so the final book that I want to talk about, again, I do not own, but I do own a book of this author's work, which is Audre Lorde's Cancer Journals. This is just a book of Audre Lorde's great wisdom. But Audre Lorde's Cancer Journals are just like such a hidden gem of Audre's work. I have been an Audre fan for a long time. I love her poetry. I love her scholarship. I studied her in school. Like, a true elder, a true ancestor of lesbian community, of queer community, of a real architect for me of what queer womanhood can look like. And this is a book that is her journals, as well as her editing and some talks and whatever. It's a compendium of her nonfiction about her experience going through breast cancer, which is, of course, different from my own experience of illness, and often acute, not always acute. In her case, more acute, I think, experience of illness rather than a chronic illness. But again, what do these words mean? But this is such a gem of a book, because you follow her throughout her whole experience, through diagnosis, through treatment. And this is a little bit less related to being sick, but one of the major things that reading this book did for me was I finished the book with so much of a reminder that being a lesbian is about pure love of women. Obviously with more elasticity around gender that Audre didn't necessarily speak to, but they're in a similar way to Alice and Leah's books being about, I'm just friends with all of these authors, which is why I'm calling them all by their first names, being reminders about community and connection. Audre's book was such a reminder to me about connection and love among women and women loving women, and queer women and lesbians and sapphics in general. And even when and especially when that love is not sexual romantic, but there's so much in the book about her love and the people, the women especially in her life, her partners, her children, her daughters, her friends, her colleagues who stood by her and supported her, and this like outpouring of love. It felt so essential to me, the way that she described and negotiated just her pure love of womanhood and connection to womanhood, and true joy of that kind of community. So that was a real standout for me of the book. But she talks so much about her connection to her body, and really the way that sickness has warped her relationship to it and her understanding of it and her connection to her body. She talks about, there are these multiple sections throughout the book where she casually mentions using masturbation as a sort of tool for self-connection and self-love, which as she is going through illness and treatment, which I'd never heard anyone speak openly about, masturbation through illness and with connection to illness. And I just really see Audre Lorde as a real prophet, a real elder. And I have never interacted with her work about being sick before. And I was so grateful to have the opportunity to do so, and to see her her queerness and her womanhood refracted through illness. It's just really beautiful. It was just a really beautiful book about being sick and the like day-to-day process of sickness, because so much of it was written as she was being sick, and as she was experiencing sickness and treatment, and recovery, and especially the relationship that she has as a woman and as a lesbian to her own body, and especially to her breasts. I do not have a breast illness, but I do have a reproductive illness. And so while I'm extremely aware of the fact that like my reproductive system, the junk I've got is not does not equate to my gender. For me, those two things are aligned and are connected, in the same way I think that they are for her, or I don't want to assume, but in a way that feels similar upon reading, that, and especially as a woman, to experience so frequently in your socialization the relationship between your body as sexual and reproductive, as in terms of it being valuable, the relationship between that and illness within those systems. I was really loved. I was really grateful for. So those are my books. What are your favorite nonfiction books about being sick?